In scene 3, we get this great character of the porter. Shakespeare would frequently put into his plays characters that were comic characters, characters that would make people laugh. And here we get a character who is the guy who opens and closes the door of the castle. He's a very earthy, very carnal kind of guy. He makes very earthy, dirty jokes. And yet, at the same time, the comedy is a little bit cynical. It's not deep, fruity sort of belly laugh. It's a very cynical way of looking at the world. And the first thing that he suggests is that he's not a porter of a regular castle, he's a porter of hell, so that Macbeth has made his castle into hell by the murder of Duncan. The porter opens by saying, if a man were a porter of Hell Gate, he would get old turning the key because there's so many people coming into hell all the time that he would get tired just constantly opening the door. And he comes to open the door, and one of the things we learn later on is that he's hungover. He's been drinking too much during the night. And so he comes to the door, kind of shuffling along, and says as he goes, he's muttering to himself, knock, knock, knock. But notice it's 3, again, knock, knock, knock. And he's there. Who's there in the name of the Lord of the Flies, right? The name of Beelzebub. And he brings up 3 different characters, all of whom are damned figures that will be condemned to hell. The first is this farmer who bought a ton of grain thinking that he'd be able to sell it at high prices. And then the bottom dropped out of the market and he was ruined, and so he hangs himself. He basically was cheating the market, and he hangs himself when he finds out that he's ruined, and so he goes to hell, right? The next one that he mentions is this equivocator, this lawyer, who could basically, on the one hand, defend this guy, and on the other hand, condemn this guy. It could go either way. It doesn't matter, whoever's paying my bill. And he says, come on in, you could try your art here with heaven and see whether or not you can convince God of your case. The third one, he says, is an English tailor, as he says, stealing out of a French hose. And what this means is the French tailor would be buying cheap material, not silk, but like a knockoff, and selling it as though it were real silk, but at the same price, see. And he says, come on into hell, you're welcome here too. You can roast your goose here. And then at the very end, he says, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm tired of this. I wanted to let in all professions and tell you all these different people, but I got tired of it. So you see again the triune imagery with the 3 characters, the knock, knock, knock that he goes back over and over again, knock and knock and knock, this constant repetition of that word is like heaven breaking into the world of the conscious Macbeth world. And then he lets in Macduff. One of the things to note, though, about the Hell Porter before we leave him behind is that he is not he's not someone that is utterly condemnable. He's somebody who, in a way, we kind of sympathize with. And when Macduff interrogates him, we see something in him that's kind of delightful. He says to Macduff, we were drinking till late in the night, right? And there are 3 things that come from this. Notice triune imagery again. Nose painting, right? It makes your nose red. And sleep, it makes you very tired. And then urine, makes you have to go to the bathroom. And again, earthy, but also bringing up those images of nose painting, the putting on a different face or a mask, sleep or sleep imagery, and then urine, if you will, water imagery. And then he says this, and this is quite striking. He says, lechery, it provokes and it unprovokes, and it brings on the performance and all this. And this is a long Shakespearean dirty joke. Essentially what the porter is suggesting is that when you drink, you have a desire for women, and yet it takes away your ability to actually be romantic, because you're all, I'm the handsomest thing in the bar. This is also like what Macbeth does when he goes to kill Duncan, strangely enough. Macbeth has this boldness. He's filled with the ichor that Lady Macbeth has poured into him, like drink. And it makes him bold, and he's ready to fight. And yet, he is incapable of actually going through with it. He has to be nudged along by Lady Macbeth. And once he's done it, he's weak and terrified. So it's almost like the very drink that's described by the porter is a reproduction of that image earlier of Macbeth being filled with the ichor, the drink of Lady Macbeth, and not being able to go through with the actions that are necessary for him. And notice that he's trying to do that to get the kingship, interestingly. He wants to get the kingship. And by killing Duncan, he thinks he's going to get the kingship. He thinks that he'll be able to consummate his position as the royalty and secure his position as royalty. And yet he finds he can't. Why? Because at the same time he's killed the king, he's also destroyed his chance for happiness, destroyed his chance for securing any kind of peace, sleep, comfort, anything. And so at the same time that he has been brought on the desire, it's taken away the performance. Another thing that this can be likened to is the desire that's instilled in him by the witches. Remember that the witches had brought into Macbeth the initial idea of killing Duncan. And they lead him on and they stoke that desire, and yet they also take away his ability to be a real man, his ability to really be a good man in the world, to be powerful in the world. And when they prophesy later on in the play, they prophesy what he should look out for, beware of Macduff and all. They are leading him on to think one way, and yet taking away his ability to act when it turns out that things are another way. And so this equivocating that he suggests is also very much like what the witches do to Macbeth. Well, the porter lets the men in, the thanes in, and they realize that Duncan has been killed, and they great cry and uproar. And Macbeth goes into the chamber to see where Duncan has been killed. And he comes back out and he gives a speech which makes everybody very suspicious of him. He says, "Had I but died an hour before this chance, I lived a blessed time. For from this instant there's nothing serious of mortality. All is but toys. Renown and grace is dead. The wine of life is drawn, and mere lees is left this vault to brag of." Now, most of us would see most all of Shakespeare as incomprehensible, right? But this part particularly is almost incomprehensible. It's very dense. It's overdone. It's overblown. Whereas the rest of Shakespeare can be read in an almost natural way. It's almost as though Macbeth here is overdoing it. He's putting on a show. He's showing everybody, oh, this is tragic. Duncan has been killed. And he makes that even worse when he says, right, the spring, the head, the fountain of your blood is stopped. The very source of it is stopped. And then he reveals that he killed the two grooms. That's odd to everybody. And even Macduff and Banquo said, why did you kill the grooms? Because, of course, there's no reason to do that. Macbeth says, in a very overblown speech, "Who can be wise, amazed, temperate and furious, loyal and neutral in a moment? No man! The expedition my violent love outran the pause of reason. Here lay Duncan, his silver skin laced with his golden blood, and his gashed stabs and blood." That whole speech is like he's trying very hard to put on the show so that nobody suspects that he is the killer. But to talk about the king as having his silver skin and the golden blood, none of the other thanes think that way. And to suggest, for instance, that he killed the grooms because he was overcome by love, well, everybody else knows that Duncan's just a man. They know that he's a man who's a king of Scotland, but he's just a man. They wouldn't have been so overcome with love that they would have just rushed in and killed anybody. So why did Macbeth kill the grooms? Part of it is because I think he kills them, he doesn't want them to talk and reveal that he's the killer, but also because he's becoming more and more murderous as the play progresses. He's becoming more like a dragon. And in this violence of seeing these two guys, he kills them and then comes out and has to make some excuse why he does so. And that's when the other thanes begin thinking, this guy is not right. Something's not right about this. And they look to each other and they're looking around, and it's at that moment that Lady Macbeth steps in. It's otherwise incomprehensible. Why does she faint? She faints not because she's overcome with emotion at the death of Duncan, certainly not. I mean, she killed the man or instigated his murder. But she's overcome by emotion in order to distract the others from the fact that Macbeth is making a fool of himself. In this speech, Macbeth is so overblown that all the thanes are looking at each other like, this guy's wrong. And Lady Macbeth suddenly faints, and they have to look to her. And so we end the scene with the two sons of Duncan, Malcolm and Donalbain, deciding that they have to leave the court because they realize that someone has killed their father here, and they suspect it's probably Macbeth. But they can't say that openly. That's dangerous. And so they realize that they have to leave because this guy, who's probably going to be king next, is going to take it out on them. And we end that scene with the two of them flying from the court and the other thanes coming together to decide what they're going to do.